Welcome back to Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Evangelical Alliance Ireland. Over the last 2 days, we've looked at Jesus in the Gospels. Each day, I suggested 2 ways in which we might view Jesus. Firstly, that we might see him as compassionate and also to see his completeness. Secondly, we see Jesus as courageous and also we see his clarity. These are all examples to us from our rabbi, our teacher, our Messiah, of who he is and how he functions with an integrated faith in action, especially with regards to material provision and money. So I'd also like to say that, look, Jesus is not against money or wealth or material possessions per se. The challenge then, as now, is that they can all too easily grab and hold our attention, our allegiance, instead of us wholeheartedly following God. Craig L. Blomberg, in his book Neither Poverty Nor Riches, concludes that the good news of the gospel is consistently holistic according to the teaching of Jesus. Material sustenance without spiritual salvation proves meaningless. Blomberg goes on to say, it goes too far to say that one cannot be rich and be a disciple of Jesus. But what never appears in the Gospels are well-to-do followers of Jesus who are not simultaneously generous in almsgiving and in divesting themselves of surplus wealth for the sake of those in need. And we see these teachings of Jesus carrying over into the New Testament writings, especially concerning the socio-economic tensions of the day. The book of James is one of the earliest and clearly prophetic in denouncing the insidious effect of wealth and possessions that was having on the early Christian community. The trials and temptations in chapter 1 are very much set within the context of those set in humble circumstances as compared to those who are rich, concluding in chapter 1 and verse 27 that what faith in action is best pleasing to God is to look after the orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. In the Acts of the Apostles and Pentecost, we vividly see how these early followers of Jesus have deeply integrated faith in action and embedded it into every aspect of their lives. Acts chapter 2, verses 42 through 47 especially, demonstrates how they devoted themselves to teaching, fellowship, communion, and prayer. Then it says all believers were together and had everything in common. Again, Blomberg provides a helpful overview. By the time Luke wrote, the gospel had spread throughout the Roman Empire to all classes of people, and the Christian communities were responding to socio-economic needs with diverse models of help. The apostles, including Paul, also demonstrate this radical integration and authenticity to faith and action. One of the strongest illustrations for me is first referenced in Acts 11:29 through 30, whereby the disciples in Antioch provide help as they are able in order to help the church in Jerusalem, which is affected by famine. Paul also references his response to famine again in his letter to the Galatians. He sees his gospel purpose as a missionary to the Gentiles, but also in Galatians chapter 2, verse 10, he restates his commitment to the poor. Indeed, he says he is eager to do this. Then in Romans chapter 15, we see how remarkably integrated faith in action is for Paul. In verses 26 through 29, the apostle is keen for another missionary trip to Spain, but only after he delivers the contribution from the church in Antioch to the church in Jerusalem. Chris Wright, in his book The Shortfall, says Paul, in effect, puts his evangelistic strategy on hold in order to carry out his relief of poverty strategy. Today, I'd like to leave you with another two words: integrated faith in action. Thank you for listening in, and join us tomorrow as I'm going to be talking more about how we arrived at this compartmentalized living and moving more towards integrated faith in action. Thank you.